I recently took a trip to Costa Rica, and it was the most life-changing experience I've ever had. And I've had some time to digest what happened and to consume everything that I've learned. And I'm at a point now where I want to tell you about it. I feel like I need to reintroduce myself to you, not as the owner of Peppy for Evie, but as something more. You might know me just as Peppy, but my real name is actually Liz. There was some trauma that happened. I'm a long way and I've made a lot of progress and I've had a lot of healing, but there were parts of me that were not able to be penetrated in order for me to obtain the level of healing that I was seeking. Because of that, I think at the beginning of this year, I'd finally hit a wall where I wasn't even able to think about what I wanted for the future because it was like there was nothing left in me to give. It was kind of just like a shell walking around, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. And like I said, I've done the healing, I've done the podcasts, I've done the audiobooks, I've done the workbooks, I've talked to friends, I've talked to professionals. There was just something about me that needed to be rewired, like a full system reboot. And so at the beginning of this year, whenever I was trying to make manifestation boards for my company, I realized that my main objective this year actually needs to switch gears. I need to focus on healing myself so that I can feel more in tune with myself, so that I actually know myself, because I don't know if I've actually ever met my true authentic self until recently. I knew who I was whenever I was supposed to be, a good Christian girl growing up. I know who I was whenever I was supposed to be a good wife. I know who I was whenever my family needed me to be a certain way or act a certain way. But as for like who I actually was, I don't know if I've ever actually met her. So I decided that was gonna be my goal. And I remember thinking like in January, like just opening up and being like, okay, universe, like you gotta help me out because I don't know where to go from here. I'm just so depleted. I felt like a shell. I wasn't depressed, it was something different. It was just, I felt very, very disconnected from myself and I hated that feeling. So that was my goal this year. I remember there was one Saturday where I wasn't sick, but my body was acting as if it was sick and my brain was completely checked out. And I was watching Netflix, which I never do. And the Aaron Rodgers documentary came on. And it was just on in the background and I was just like scrolling on my phone, doom scrolling. And the part came on where he talked about going to this retreat. And like it captured my attention because, who doesn't love a retreat? But it was all about healing. The way that Aaron was talking about his life very much closely resembled how I felt about mine. And in his documentary, he was talking about the immense amount of healing that it brought to him. I booked a trip to try ayahuasca for the first time. I hesitated before I spoke about anything, ever. I never laughed out loud. I always kept it in. It was like I was walking around like this, like tight, afraid to ruffle any feathers, afraid to stand out. I didn't want to be noticed. I kept my eyes down. I had a hard time leaving the house. I did not want to be seen. I did not want to be perceived. I kept people far, far away from me because, over time, that's what I learned was a safe place to keep them. But because of all of that, I'd become very disconnected with myself. And so the fact that I even booked that trip, being so scared to even fly across the country by myself, and here I am flying across the world for some help. Looking back now, I'm like, I'm so glad I listened to the universe whenever she gave me that like green light, like that little tidbit of knowledge that said, hey, this might be something that you're looking for. What stood out to me the most about Behold was the amount of time that they wanted you to be there and also their code of conduct. So I wanted to go to a place that was very respectful of our journeys and why we were there. I didn't want to go and have like someone that was taking it super lighthearted. Like ayahuasca is a hallucinogen, so I didn't want to just be a part of like a party group. I wanted to be with people that were like-minded, who were seeking out like true divine interventions within themselves, like the utmost level of healing. That's what I wanted to be around. I felt like I connected with the guys even before we arrived. And we had a group call with like the whole group that I was gonna be with, which was 9 other adults beforehand. And right away, I felt like it was meant to be that I was there. I remember being kind of quiet on the call like I usually am and just very reserved. Boy, did that change. Any questions that we had, which were a lot, the guys were so patient with us on how many questions we had about how this was gonna work and how many cups does it take and la 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 la. They were so helpful and so patient with us. We went in as a group, like feeling just as supportive as we felt supported. The retreat that I went on, you have 3 ceremonies. So you do it 3 times over the course of 6 days. It's a very safe space. You're very well taken care of. But I remember this like little light bright looking shape came up and she was like, "Are you ready to go?" And then I saw like this little fuzzy looking thing right next to her, and that was me. Like that was little me. And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, let's go." So then she took me through, I didn't have like any super happy memories of my childhood, but the feeling that I got was very warm. It was very like sweet. And I remember asking her questions that were really, really hard, and questions that I've had since I was younger. And the way that I was asking them in my vision was very childlike. Like it was literally like little Liz asking Mother Ayahuasca, like, why did this happen? Or why didn't someone, do this, that, the other thing? And, she had answers so quick. And I remember in that vision feeling like the answers that she gave me, I was finally able to like accept and absorb. I remember in that vision feeling like, okay. Whereas before, I would not be able to accept what was given to me, like the answers. I would have still tried to like make sense of things. I still would not have been able to accept it. But in that moment, I remember that vision clearly accepting the gift that she had given me, which was just peace, which is one of the reasons why I went. The second night of ceremony was a pretty intense one for me. I went in with the intention of getting down to like the nitty-gritty. So I went for healing over trauma. I was able to talk to a guide the very next morning before even breakfast started about it, so that I could help digest like what I had seen and re-experienced and the clarity that had given me. Because honestly, after the second ceremony, the clarity that I had received was exactly that. It was clarity, but it also was very hurtful. A lot of the things that I had been denying up to that point, I had been in denial about, came out in the open, and I wasn't able to deny it anymore. And it was kind of like grieving a part of me and grieving a relationship that I thought that I had, like a key relationship, grieving the fact that it never was what I thought it was, and it never will be what I want it to be. But I was able to talk to somebody through that. By the end of that night, I was more excited than ever to finish out strong with the third ceremony. I knew at that point that even if the visions or the hallucinations were really strong or a lot to handle in that moment, I learned from experience through going through it for the second ceremony that it was needed, and it was the reason why it was there. And I learned that I can do really hard things, not just do hard things, but feel really hard things, and it was all worth it. I wasn't feeling it just to feeling it. I was feeling it so that I could finally break through that wall of Liz, so that I could finally get to the other side and not just meet the real me, but truly love the real me. By the time the third ceremony came around, people had started to see a significant difference in me. I wasn't so much like a turtle in a shell anymore. The most amazing thing that happened was we were at dinner, or it was either lunch or dinner, and it was like we were like passing around food. And up until this point, but when I got to Costa Rica, like I said, I was very quiet. I scanned the room to see what I could say. I'm always so afraid that I'd be perceived the wrong thing, or what if I offend somebody? Obviously, I still don't want to offend somebody, but it was debilitating. It was to the point where I kept my personality under complete wraps because I was just so afraid of how it might affect somebody else. And I would never speak without giving it considerable amount of thought beforehand. So I remember during either lunch or dinner, we were passing stuff around, and like I heard somebody just talking and chiming in, and it was me. Like I heard this voice, and I was like a sentence in before I realized that I was talking without feeling restricted anymore. And like, if you've never been there, you won't understand the freedom how that feels. But it was just proof that ayahuasca was already working on the boundaries that I had put myself in, like the bondages that I had put myself in, I guess you should say. I just started to really accept who I am and love that person. I'm not carrying the guilt of having boundaries anymore, because I would just feel bad about, it's wild when you're with narcissistic people to say like, I feel bad that I have to put up this boundary because you're hurting me. It's wild. I don't feel bad anymore. That was another really big healing moment for me. My visions were so peaceful. I got to spend time. One of the main reasons I went, again, is because I wanted to be able to experience deep-rooted relationships with people, relationships that had meaning to them and that I feel like I could let myself be vulnerable with, and I couldn't do that until I went on this trip. I could not let myself be vulnerable. So I feel like at times that because of what our ancestors had done, we didn't deserve to have this medicine. Thank God that forgiveness exists and compassion and empathy exists. But I felt so honored just to be a part of, their culture, but then they were sharing this special, life-changing experience with us. And the cleansing ceremony, oh my God, the things that I saw were just so beautiful. Lights everywhere, and the shaman and Julian, they looked like eagles, and their eyes were glowing bright blue, and that might sound wild, and if I had never done it, I would be like, you're nuts. But I've never seen stuff like that before, and you can reach out and touch it, and it doesn't go away. You are experiencing these beautiful visions, and you're changing the wiring of your brain while it happens. One moment in my life that I could relive, it would be that one. The friendships that I made are lifelong. The people that I've met, I feel like whenever I go home, I'm gonna have to reintroduce myself to people and be like, hi, I'm Liz. Hi, nice to meet you, because I finally met me. I finally met who I was without being influenced by all of the perceptions of who I thought that I needed to be to get love and affection and to feel worthy of those things. Ayahuasca is not for everybody, and I will not sell that. I will never say that ayahuasca is for everybody, but I will say if you're even a little bit curious about how it works, to do some research on it. Behold has an amazing team. They will answer any questions that you have. They will put any concerns that you have at ease. I was never really into plant medicine until now. I've never really understood it until I looked into ayahuasca, and now you can bet I'm a believer. I'm a different person, and it's been a month since I've been home, and I still feel the same. I feel at peace. I feel love. I feel like I smile more. I'm more open to people and experiences, and I've even taken up a yoga class, which is wild considering I couldn't even leave the house a month ago. I'm not scared to try new things. I'm not scared to experience with new things. I'm not scared to look like a fool, or I'm much less worried about people's perceptions of me. It was just the most amazing experience of my life, and it's not for you if you don't want to change your life, because it will, in all the best ways. It's like a rebirth, like I've been reborn.